7B, a resolution of the Redevelopment Agency authorizing the interim executive director to submit an application for capital asset project grant funds from the California Cultural and Historical Endowment under the California Clean Water Act for the purpose of funding the adaptive reuse and renovation of 4060 Hollis Street in Emeryville. Amy or Amy, there you are.
Yes, I just showed up.
Okay.
Moving it along.
Amy, before you start, I just want to thank you for incorporating my wordsmithing changes
All right.
there.
Not a problem.
Yeah.
So good evening, Chair Davis, Vice Chair Atkin, and fellow agency board members. As you know, last April, the agency purchased the property located at 4060 Hollis Street, formerly the United Stamping Company, with the intention of renovating it to serve as an interim art center. This site, along with a privately owned property at 1460 Park Avenue, was included in a previous arts and cultural feasibility study done that the city commissioned in 2004. The 4060 Hollis site is located immediately adjacent to City Hall and was identified in the Civic Center master plan as the location for a future arts center. And last April, the agency authorized staff to proceed with a request for qualifications to solicit architectural firms to undertake schematic designs for the adaptive reuse of the building. Through this process, the firm of Marcy Wong, Don Logan Architects, was selected, and since fall 2006, Don Logan has been working with staff and 3 identified user groups to use the space on the development and refinement of these 3 conceptual plans. In addition to the designs, the architects' engineers have prepared structural reports for each of the schemes, and a firm that they retained, Leland Saylor, has prepared cost estimates. In December, the City Council adopted the 5-year capital improvement plan, which appropriates $3.225 million in redevelopment funds for the renovation. This evening, I'd like to present the general program for the center and have Don Logan present the 3 conceptual designs. I would like to come back and review the financial aspects of the project and some policy issues before the agency. Before reviewing the program, though, let me quickly highlight the application that's in your packet for this California Cultural and Historical Endowment. It was created by Prop 40 in 2002, and this is the third and final funding round. There's $43 million available in capital asset grant funding. The projects are supposed to promote some aspect of California cultural or culture or history. Staff is recommending that you adopt the resolution, which then allows me to submit the application. The sheet that was on the dais has the changes that Vice Mayor Atkin recommended, so those have been incorporated. I wanted you to know as well that Townsend Public Affairs, the state lobbyist group that we have, has also gotten back to me with some comments on my draft application, and I'm going to be spending the week incorporating those. It was really to kind of enhance the application and kind of the regional draw potentially of this facility, and kind of beef up the language on the preservation aspects of it, because that is something that is a priority for the funding. Since early fall, staff, as I mentioned, has been working with the representatives of the groups, Emeryville Celebration of the Arts, the Emeryville Historical Society, and Pacific Center for the Photographic Arts, to identify how their uses could be accommodated within this building, which is a 30,000 square foot building. The plans call for the adaptive reuse of the building. The designs show additional opportunities for leasable space and flex space. Don's going to get more into that. The building right now is vacant. It's roughly demised into a large warehouse floor, about 2/3 of it, and 1/3 of it is offices. It's unreinforced masonry. It would need major system upgrades, a seismic upgrade, additional entry points. It has some inherent architectural integrity due to its brick facade and its, the barrel vaulted roof line, the kind of industrial look. The Park Avenue District Plan has listed it as a Tier 2 building, which means it has moderate architectural significance. It would require Planning Commission design review for any proposed alterations or demolition. When the agency identified these groups, the concept was to provide a concentration of arts and cultural related uses within one space. It would activate the building as well as the surrounding district. The Park Avenue District Plan was adopted last August and cites the addition of an arts facility as fundamental to bringing this additional activity to the district and livening it up. None of the identified uses right now has a permanent location in Emeryville. Typically, the Celebration of the Arts exhibition require about 10,000 square feet, and they rely on donated vacant commercial space every year. The Historical Society is a volunteer-run organization. They have an active interest, as you know, in promoting Emeryville's history. They have displays at the Oakland Public Library, and that is where Don Hausler, the president of the Historical Society, works. And then they have thousands of items that are basically stored in people's homes, the board members' homes. PCPA has office space, and they are seeking an Emeryville home for their gallery. In 2003, the agency kind of conceptually approved providing $350,000 in tenant improvement assistance to PCPA. At that time, there was not a space available, and the agency also requested that they undertake additional fundraising activities. We would need to bring lease agreements back to you for your consideration at a later date for any of these groups. There are representatives tonight of Celebration of the Arts and PCPA. Don Hausler was not able to be here this evening. So at this point, if I could turn it over to Don Logan to present the plans.
Can I ask a question about the process here? You know, we've been looking to have this for a long time, and it's been in the works for a long time, but it seems that the community should have some input into the use of this building or what we're going to do with it, and that's really a missing element. We have a proposal for arts at the Community Center of Life, and I'm not so sure how this project mixes with that, or that potentially funds that are applied for this project might interfere with funds that are applied for the Community Center of Life. I don't know what the sources of funds are, but I know if one of those sources gives something to Emeryville, and then we make maybe a second larger request for the Community Center of Life, that they might look at that and say, well, gee, we've already given Emeryville money, now they want more money. So I just think that somehow the use of this building and the proposed arts center for the Community Center of Life should have some kind of coordination, and that this should have some kind of community input before moving forward. So those are my comments.
Well, if I could respond on the community input, I agree fully with that. The agency, when we were asked to move forward with this conceptual design process, the process that was laid out, this was back in, I guess about May, when we hired Don's firm, was to develop these conceptual plans with these user groups, and then get that package together, get these cost estimates together, have a full understanding of what was involved in this, and then bring it to the different policy making groups in Emeryville. And one of the things I've recommended in the staff report is that you might want to look at having a group, such as the one you're looking at for this ad hoc group that's forming for this other project, at the point you're getting into design development, to really have community input. Tomorrow night, this project is going to the Park Avenue District Committee. Next month, it's going to the Public Art Committee and the Planning Commission. Initially, we were planning to do all those steps first before coming to you, and I have to say that this application, it was a great funding opportunity, came up, and we needed to bring this to you to even submit the application. So we're coming to you first. I would like to bring the comments of these other groups back to the agency when I get through those presentations and hear what those groups have to say.
Well, let me ask a question. If we were to receive funding for this project, does that in any way lock us into the uses that we're suggesting are going to be there? I mean, I'd hate to, be locked into something just because we got the funding and then not be able to make any changes or respond to comments that we get from the community. So, how locked in are we into this conceptual design if we get this funding?
We are identifying in this application these groups as users. I don't think you could come in with a completely different use and have them, have the money stay in this project. I don't think that I think when you submit an application, you are committing to this concept of it being a cultural, art center.
Ken, I just have a comment, which is that when we were talking about even buying this building from Dan Calavaro, the three tenants that we're proposing in the grant application were mentioned right from the get-go when we decided to go ahead and buy the building. So it's not exactly like this is new.
I'm not suggesting that any of the uses are not appropriate or not even welcome. I'm just saying we've been planning this for a long time, and there's just been no community input, and that's just a difficulty that I have. I mean, Patrick said that he wanted to reach out to the community and involve the community, and here we're going forward with something that doesn't involve the community. So,
But
I mean,
I
I fully
think
support the uses that are going to be there. And,
Amy just outlined the fact that we are going to go to the community and we're going to various groups. Unfortunately, we have a funding application that's due at the end of this month, and we weren't able to, and you have to approve it before we can submit it, and so we weren't able to go to all those community groups first. So that's why it's a little bit out of order. If you don't want to apply for the $1 million and you want to go to the community groups first, then we can do that.
I'm just saying, if we have the community center of life, we might decide that, maybe the community the celebration of the arts might be more appropriate at that location, and then this would lock us in. That's all. I mean,
If I may, Ken, the point is, if we apply for the grant and we, with some luck, get it, by that time, this will be late in the summer before they get back to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
By that time, we will have had an opportunity to take this proposal out to the community groups all over town, and if it should come back that the community groups say, no, we don't like this idea, we don't have to accept the grant. The point is,
Right.
if you don't put your hat in the ring, you're
You
not
don't
going to get a
apply for
response.
money, we're not going to get it.
okay.
I would certainly, how far along are we on this process? We need this $1 million if we're going to consider this. Are we far enough along to have a motion on this?
Well,
To apply for the grant? That's what I'm interested in, naturally.
well, part of the grant application, though, is you want us to decide on which scheme, right?
No.
No,
No.
really, tonight we wanted to show you the three concept designs and talk to you about what they, we're not, in the application, I am not saying we are doing, this scheme.
The
So
critical
we're-
issue here tonight is, as far as time is concerned, is if we don't make the decision tonight to go for the money, we will lose out on the chance to do it. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's the issue before.
I move the resolution that we apply for this funding.
Do I have a
I'll
second
second
here?
that, sure.
Call the roll, please.
Can I comment?
Certainly, Mr.
Okay.
Fricke.
I agree that we should apply for the money, but my recollection about the decision to purchase the property is different. It seemed, my recollection is that we purchased this property because it was right next to City Hall, and it was an opportunity to acquire property that we would have some plan for in the future. The various future uses, one of which was an interim arts center, which would include Pacific Center for Photographic Arts, Emeryville Historical Society, the Celebration of the Arts. That was one possible scenario. Another possible scenario was that we would level the building and that we would build something else at that location. And the reason I think that interim was used, to interim arts center was used, was because it was a nod to this idea that that in the future we might just level the building, and part of that included building a parking garage where there is currently a surface parking lot. So I think that this is a critical meeting, because I would like my colleagues to decide, or maybe delay. Maybe we decide now not to decide, but I think we should decide something. What is the use here? Is it an interim arts center, or it was characterized differently in another place as cultural arts center? Another reference is arts and cultural center. All of these things are fairly similar, but different. Now, it could be that this is not the time to have this discussion about what uses should be in this location, but it cost $3 million to acquire the property. This is gonna, this plan would add another $7 million. So it's a $10 million proposition, and that's a significant amount of money. I think that there should be a plan. Maybe we're not going to decide that tonight, but I want to avoid going down the path of committing to these uses. I know one of the other uses that was mentioned in the application was Tyco, and that I just don't see that occurring inside this building. You know, it doesn't. I've been to the performances. It's extremely loud, and I just don't. So that's just an example of and I agree with Mayor Davis that maybe later we'll decide that we're not going to take this funding. You know, that I think it is very wise, that's a future option we have. But I look forward, if it's not tonight, I look forward to the point where we have a frank discussion about what is the use going to be at this location. Because as I mentioned back in October, this was previously characterized as interim arts center. Well, if you look at the application, there is no reference to interim in the application, because and for good reason. It's $10 million. $10 million is not interim. That's permanent. Okay. There's also been floated in the city an idea of an arts center on Park Avenue. Are we going to spend $10 million behind us here, and then also something on Park Avenue, and then there's also a performing arts center that is part of the Center of Community Life? These three things, I don't think warrant $10 million, $10 million, $10 million. So if we don't have that discussion tonight, I look forward to having that discussion, because I think I think it's within our power to provide a little bit more direction. Thank you, Mayor Davis.
Mayor, if I may comment. You know, and I think some of the questions that Ken and John are raising are fair questions. And so I think if, you know, I'll just designate myself the council member who started talking about a cultural center probably before anybody else did, and who's really pushed that concept, because I think it's a way to bring people together. But I think John and Ken are right, as we're getting down to, you know, dollars and cents, and we can't do everything. I mean, we already know on our capital improvement program we've got lots of holes, and if we were to go forward with this project as it is, we've got a shortfall, and that money would have to come out of some other program. So let me just say that for myself, I'm speaking as one council member who always has adhered to the idea of the Park Avenue Cultural Center down the road, because we've got that building, that tilt-up building, that's by far the ugliest building in the whole Park Avenue district, that occupies an entire block, that gave us a chance to do a lot of what the Park Avenue Committee folks wanted, which was to take that thing down and be able to recess the center so that you could have outdoor space to do performances and shows, and then, you know, have a combined use inside and provide some parking, and also build some condominiums on top to help pay for it. I still think that's a grand plan. But I also, in being realistic, I have said here a number of times that to me personally, the most important work that we're doing is the Center for Community Life. And that's where the majority of my vote of dollars is going to go. So what I'm prepared to say tonight is, although I love the idea of the Park Avenue venue, given the reality of what we're trying to do with the Center for Community Life, and to do something down this art road in the meantime, is that I recognize that that the Park Avenue venue is going to have to be way down the line, if at all. And by virtue of the fact that this property behind us would have to be not designated as interim, but as an art center, I'm prepared to do that. I've also talked with Tony Smith, because there's been this concern about what we're going to do in the Center for Community Life in the way of art and culture. And, Tony's comment is just, we need to create spaces where people can be together and do things and connect in the city. And as many of those as we have in a lattice work, that's what we want to do. And I know from Sharon and my discussions, I see the cultural aspects of what's going to be in the Center for Community Life, something that's more oriented to the children and the parents than I do professional type of shows and performances. There are some city school works that together where there is a cultural center, a full-blown adult cultural center. We've heard about those. But I don't think we're going to have the space to do all things in one place. So I think if, for myself, I'm now conceiving of this in a more focused way of saying, I want to go forward with this, and this may be all that we can ever do. I don't think, John, I may be wrong, I don't think there was ever a plan to level this building. I think the plan was to build something in the parking lot next to us, which would be structured parking and additional art uses, and even adding something on to the east side of the building. I think the thought was always to do it here. So again, I'm prepared to say I'm ready to put the Park Avenue totally on the back page, though it breaks my heart to do that. That's a reality physically. And second of all, to say I think that we need to concentrate our efforts on this center in terms of professional adult kinds of things for now, and that as we figure out the kinds of things that can happen in the Center for Community Life that augment this, or that intertwine with this, or that complement it, that we can go down that route. But I don't see those as being conflicting uses. I don't see them being competing uses. I see them being as additional uses, because this is only going to be part of what we need to do in the town.
Any further comments? Yes, Councilmember Fricke.
Okay, so I'm glad we're having this discussion.
Yeah.
I think that the space behind us warrants a $10 million investment. If it's a really great arts, whatever, center or whatever you call it, it has to be more than just a place for Emeryville residents to congregate. And what I'm imagining, I don't know if my colleagues ever went to this museum in San Francisco called the Ansel Adams Museum. It was in a very small space, much smaller than this building. But it was a very nice space. They had changing photo exhibitions, and it brought people into that museum that would otherwise perhaps be going to SF MoMA. What I imagine here is a place that has that quality of exhibits year-round, or it has something, that's something that brings people regularly. Now, what the Emeryville Art Show is 1 month out of 12, and I think that is something that I'm imagining there, bringing people in. But then the other 11 months, that's the rub. There has to be something of equal or greater quality to warrant a $10 million investment.
If I may, you have Lois and Elnora with Pacific Center nodding in avid agreement with what you're saying, and their programs already draw people from the greater Bay Area. So the fact that they'll have a home there would be a draw for photography.
Yeah, I think that now I've met with both of you, and I'll be very frank. I think that what the Pacific Center for Photographic Arts is doing is good, but it has a way to go to prove itself as an arts institution. I think I expect that they will get to that point where they are renowned and that people come, they get on BART and they come. I expect that the tourist guidebook will have in their column under San Francisco, and then within the San Francisco area will have this as a place to go. Okay, that's what I'm imagining. And I think that the Pacific Center for Photographic Arts can do that, but they haven't yet, and I'm looking forward to this city council providing that opportunity. But I think that there has to be something more than just the PCPA and more than just the celebration of the arts. It's a huge investment. The building, if we make this investment, no doubt that space will be incredible art space. And what I would like to make sure is that the functions that occur inside that space do justice to the building, because the building will be incredible. Any of these three scenarios, I think, will be incredible, especially when you consider, well, we have the city hall here, and I very much like the administration building architecture. There's a glue there, but I'm concerned when I see this Tyco and Youth Art Month. Okay, Youth Art Month is not what I'm imagining for a $10 million investment. When I was in high school, we had art that we looked at, that it was displayed in the high school. I don't imagine this space as a place for youth art. It's going, if it was I'm trying to think of another space. If it was simply that we're renting the space and we didn't have to do anything to seismically retrofit and we're just in and out, then yeah, Youth Art Month would be great. But this is $10 million. And so we have to really aim high. So those are my comments.
And Mayor, if I could, I just want to say I agree and disagree. I think your comments are fair, and we got to figure out what we're doing with the money. For one thing, I just want to make clear that the art show really takes 2 months because of staging and art up and art down. So that's 2 months of the year. And yes, we definitely have to put that to good use. And I want to aim high. I want a first-class center. And I think, those are things and programs that we have to develop down the road. The place where I disagree is that I don't, while I want to draw and have it be a first-class center, as the money would indicate, by the same token, I don't want to shut the door to Emeryville. And I think youth art is incredibly important. And I think for the kids to be able, in a professional space, to be able to exhibit their art, it's been the link here for these last few years, is something that inspires the kids and moves them on to higher levels. And I think those are the kind of things that we have to do. But I don't see us just doing that. I see us having a mix of very professional kinds of things going on here, in addition to having, things that wouldn't be considered as professional as others. So I think we just have to cross those bridges as we go. But I'm encouraged to hear, aiming high, I think, is the right thing to do.
Pardon me.
I moved the resolution, and there was a second.
All right, let's get the resolution out of the way for the going after the money. Call the roll,
I
please.
had one comment. I just wanted to get some final determination as to how much flexibility we have if we go for this grant money. Can we change the uses, or what flexibility do we have?
We could add, probably.
If we get the grant funds, then we'll come back to you with the application. And if you want to, at that point, actually accept the grant funds, then you would be designating this as your permanent arts cultural facility.
Okay,
We're
so
not
you
at
will
that
lose
decision
some flexibility at that
Okay,
point.
so at this point, we're just asking for the money.
That's right.
Okay,
Call
fine.
the roll, please.
Councilmember Bukowski.
Aye.
Councilmember, Agency Member Fricke.
Aye.
Agency Member Cassis. Aye. Vice Chair Atkin.
Aye.
Chair Davis.
Aye. I'd like to hear, I know we have people here who would like to speak to this item. Would you like to come forward? and address the council on this item.
We still have the presentation, too, and figuring out what scheme, aren't we sort of
Well,
tonight?
is that a decision point tonight?
Do we have to, yeah, that's a good
Amy,
question.
squirt.
It's not a decision point tonight. I mean, as I mentioned, I would like to come back to the agency after I've been to these other groups. Don is here, if you'd like him to do a presentation on the designs, or we can move on to the representatives of the groups.
Councilmember Bukowski made a good point. We do want to go out to the other groups in the community, let the presentation be made to them. Then when you come, and I'm speaking for the council here, then come back with the comments that these other groups have made for us to look at the,
All right.
at the presentations. Everybody happy with that? I'd like to hear from the public now on this item. Anybody want to come forward? Rick?
Good evening, Council. I'm Rick Tejada Flores, a 10-year Emeryville resident. I'm a filmmaker who works in Berkeley, but that's changing very fast. A group of around 25 to 30 nonprofit filmmakers who are based in the Salzance building in Fantasy are planning to relocate. And we're looking very strongly at Emeryville as a place for filmmakers to live and work and be creative. And I just sort of like to plant the seed as a member of the public in terms of broadening the uses of the building, that that film and media arts are such an important function, creative function in this city, from Pixar on one end to Expressions on the other. And there's soon going to be a critical mass of independent documentary and award-winning filmmakers here that it might be interesting. I don't want to derail this application because I think it makes sense to go forward with it, but it might be interesting to think about media uses for the building, screening theaters, media classes, media literacy, those kinds of things, so that Emeryville can develop a critical mass in terms of film and media arts.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think it's a point well taken. This is a work in progress, and it's going to change and get better and get to be just a real center, people coming from all over.
Yeah, I'd like to see it very broadly conceived of in terms of the arts, though.
Thank you.
So,
Thank
I
you for
think
coming
that's,
tonight.
again, that's the kind of, I'm looking for something that fills a niche. The West Coast Photo, Pacific Center for Photographic Arts. Rick is talking about documentary film, okay? That's how we're going to succeed with this space, is it gets known for X. And, my question is, well, is it too late to include some narrative about, well, and we're also thinking about having documentary film at this, in this site. Should we include that in the application?
Well, I think those are as viable as Tycho.
Well, I mean,
And I've taken
Tycho.
Tycho classes.
Yeah. So my question to the council is,
I think we're open-ended enough here that we can adapt and change. Do you have any problems with that, Amy? All right.
it'd be nice if the
Young
application
ladies.
had some language about film.
I'm Eleanor Lee of the Pacific Center for the Photographic Arts, and this
And
is
Lois Brown.
Lois Brown. And we wanted to reassure you that.
Please
our
talk into the
vision-
microphone, will you? Because there you go.
Sorry. Want to reassure you that our vision is as big, if not bigger, than what you were talking about. And first, we want to thank you for including PCPA in the development of the Arts and Cultural Center. And to that end, Amy has just been wonderful about including us in meetings with her and the architect so that we would have some input into the concept. And our portion of it is about 7,200 square feet. And out of that center, now that it seems like it's going to become a reality, it takes a long lead time to attract a world-class exhibit to be the grand opening for this photographic museum. And so we were fortunate enough to attract Robert Glenn Ketchum. He is a photographer known the world over for his environmental issues. He's also an activist. And between his photography and his environmental activism, he has been instrumental in getting the Hudson River Valley cleaned up through his photographs. And also, he has been instrumental in getting the Tongass timber bill passed through his photographs. And so he has been, we've approached him, and he's interested in being our opening exhibit, and he's flying in this Friday to meet with Lois and myself about the opening exhibit. And so we wanted to urge you to, move forward with this
Put the
as
show on the
quickly as
road,
possible, right? And, he's quite an activist, and he's very well known, and he's talking about wanting to involve the governor in this particular exhibit, and Al Gore, and because he's an environmental photographer and an activist. So we're hoping that we'll be able to come up with something when we meet with him this Friday. And Lois can tell you about some of the other exhibits that we have on tap.
Well, I just want to say that we're really shooting high, and the Robert Glenn Ketchum exhibit comes from the Amon Carter Museum, which is very well known in the United States.
Can you move the mic to?
Oh, I'm
talk
sorry.
directly
The,
into it?
the Robert Glenn Ketchum exhibit comes from the Amon Carter Museum, and that's the quality of museum that we want to work with. And he was very excited about this venue because he has tried to show his work at the Bay Area before, and there are no venues besides the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, which does not really lend itself to landscape photography and activist photography and that sort of thing. Other shows that we're talking about is the Lee Miller show, which is she was the first war photographer, female war photographer to be shooting in World War II, and she's very exciting. She worked with Steichen and Man Ray, and her show hasn't been shown in the United States except for 1989, I think, in San Francisco. But anyway, we want to bring her back because she's an exciting woman photographer, and you don't see a lot of women photographers exhibited. Let's see.
Do my colleagues want to see Robert Glenn Ketchum's photography?
Well, if you would like to see his photography, we have a book
I
right here
actually
on
have
the
it on-
actual show.
I have it on the laptop.
Oh, thank you. Very good.
Mayor Davis, what's your
Sure, go ahead.
Why don't you just throw it on?
Just throw it on while
Throw it
we're
on while they're
talking.
talking.
That's a good idea.
Right, all right. Well, okay, back to Robert Glenn Ketchum, because I think that he is really the first person we approached, and he is so excited about the idea. He is extremely well connected in the conservation movement in California. He would bring to Emeryville people from all over the state, and he would bring people from San Francisco. And we could tie in an environmental program with lectures and talks and bring in the schools. And so we just wanted you to know that this is the quality of show that we're looking at.
Thank you very much for your comments. Anybody else like to comment?
Oh, I just had one other thing, which is part of our mission was to provide access to photography to as many people as we could, from students to professional photographers. And our next workshop is called Shooting for eBay Dollars, because there's been so much interest in selling on eBay, and the quality of the photograph of whatever it is you're selling will help you sell better. And so we're going to run a workshop on it.
Great.
Great.
I'd like to thank you guys for hanging with us through all this time, too, because I know that there's other places that you could have gone and that would love to have you, and I appreciate the fact that you've been patient and waiting for this, and it's not going to be here tomorrow either, so we appreciate your continued patience.
Thank you. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Atkins.
Amy, do you staff the Park Avenue Committee too? No, but you'll be at that committee meeting tomorrow? The only thing, and this is kind of what, a follow-up to what your comments were, Dick, which is that, we're really making a decision to make this a permanent facility, and I'm aware that that committee has spent many hours going over that tilt-up building and doing something further down on the avenue. And so I guess my question then to whoever's staffing that committee is how to talk about this shift and transition.
I was planning to give them a report on tonight's meeting, so I did write a similar report for that as what you're reading tonight, and so the discussion, there is a discussion in that report about the interim versus permanent nature of the facility, and I was going to just update them on what the agency had talked about tonight.
Okay.
And our staff person is here from Park
Yeah.
Avenue, if you want to, have her come up for a moment. But
Sharon, could we hear from you, please?
Sharon, just before you do, I want to remind everybody,
Sure.
the Park Avenue plan has both locations in it. It's
Right.
just, a lot of us were clinging to that Park Avenue one.
Well, as you all know, the annual Emeryville Art Exhibition just celebrated its 20th year, and planning is just starting up for the 21st. Last fall, we had over 6,000 visitors, and they were regional, not just from Emeryville. We even had some folks who, we had an article that was published in an airline magazine, so they, were here visiting in the Bay Area and came to Emeryville to see the exhibition. We sold more work for artists than ever before and hosted more student visits than recent years. But since the planning is already beginning for the 21st, I'm out there looking for space, and I'm kind of disappointed that I think Lazy Boy is going to open any day now, because I thought maybe that might be
We're old, it's
maybe a September thing, or there have been some changes over at the Powell Street Plaza, but they seem to be filling the spaces. I keep my eye on those things. Yeah, the Shoe Pavilion has hopped over to a much
Right.
to Copeland's now, so a much larger space. Having a permanent address would provide an opportunity to expand the annual exhibition, the ability to be listed as a gallery, which we can't now do because we don't have a permanent space, which helps to build audience. We have a great mailing list, but this might perhaps also allow us to expand our programs to include several other events, not something that would be year-round, but we certainly could think about something beyond the annual art exhibition. On a practical level, rather than programmatic, like the Historical Society, I squirrel things away wherever I can between exhibitions, and so I have things stashed everywhere, and most recently have 20 years of documents and records and an office that's now been moved into my textile studio, so I would love to be able to consolidate things in one place. This is all history to you, but I just was thinking about this, about your decision tonight, and that Emeryville was among the first West Coast cities to adopt a live work ordinance, at the time developed for working artists and craftspeople. Emeryville was also in the vanguard with a public art ordinance that included not just public art, but the private sector, and the result of which continues to enrich our community, enlighten some developers, and enliven our cityscape for people who come to visit. The arts have become an important player in how we see and how we define our city. As a member of the Civic Center Committee many years ago, making plans for our new administration building and the reuse of Town Hall, many community meetings were held throughout the city, and at each of these meetings, and the comment didn't come from me, there was always a wish expressed for a cultural arts center. And as a result of this, the Civic Center Master Plan actually included at that time what they called Phase 2, which did the United Stamping Building was part of that design for a cultural arts center. And we actually I think Dick, you mentioned this, thought about the possibility of even an additional building at some point, a new structure in addition to the United Stamping and structured parking here on the parking lot. So I think that, you'll see later if architectural presentations are made tonight or in the future, one of the things that I remember also from the Civic Center meetings was the desire for an outdoor community gathering space. And as we've seen from some of the events that we've had here, that the courtyard is beautiful, but it's fairly small. And the idea of taking the opportunity to have an extension of that perhaps in part of this, the United Stamping Building, is really exciting. And there are some models in the Bay Area and certainly nationally that do include the community, that sometimes do include things like youth art. Our youth art month and Youth Art Day really has outgrown even this venue, and I know that parents would like to see events that might happen in the evening or on a weekend that might happen throughout the month, and there really isn't a proper venue for that. And I know that with us, on a separate note with the Emeryville Youth Art Program that I coordinate, that we have tried, especially through the SEED project and some other things, to find small, legitimate gallery venues for the student work to be viewed, and I think it's very important for the students to have that opportunity. Don Hausler can't be here tonight, and I just thought I wanted to just mention my perspective on the Historical Society, which has also been included in at least these preliminary plans. And they amaze me. I mean, a small group of dedicated people who created and have held together the Historical Society, and I don't know really how they do it, but I know it's their passion. And the more I thought about this, I mean, they're having a permanent home, and the ability to share this with a broader community, not just Emeryville. I mean, Emeryville has such a wonderful, colorful history, and my wheels started turning as to ways that they might be able to hold exhibits in a portion of the space, walking tours, self-guided tours, the opportunity to increase their membership. We have a lot of new residents in the city, and I think, you know, some new energy would be welcome. And I also look forward to the opportunity. I mean, PCPA has really has such wonderful things planned, and I know that the Historical Society and the Celebration of the Arts look forward to collaborative efforts where we can work with one another. And I think that, I mean, you've gone ahead at least to take this step to apply for the funding. And I also, because I've lived in Emeryville for 25 years, am involved with the arts on a number of different levels. I look forward to community participation as to how this facility can serve the community year-round, and I also look for quality. So thank you for taking this step tonight.
Thank you, Sharon. And you will come back, Amy. Okay, I think we can move on to...
Mayor, just before we do, just because he came and spent all the time, I want to thank the architect for your good work. I've enjoyed looking at the plans, and I'm going to go on record right now. I mean, first of all, I think you've done some amazing things with a difficult space, and I am on board on Scheme B big time, and it's going to be hard to get me off that. I understand it's expensive, but it just looks like it's got so much class and style to it. I really want to compliment you and thank you for sitting through a long meeting to not end up making a presentation, but please hang with us because your work is appreciated and excellent.
Moving on to communications and